Luxembourg is the world's only surviving Grand Duchy, which means its governing monarch is a duke rather than a king. But this is not the only characteristic that distinguishes the country. Luxembourg is the wealthiest nation in the world, with a GDP per capita of more than $140,000, more than $50,000, more than the next runner up. But you are probably asking why. Today's video is about the richest country in the world in 2022. Before starting this video, please subscribe to our channel. Let us have a look. When steel was produced in 1960 in Luxembourg, the country was once proud of its status as an industrial state. Since then, the nation has taken steps to diversify its economy, and the banking industry has emerged as the most successful area. Luxembourg is often referred to be a tax haven. Nonetheless, the country is home to a number of regional offices of big multinational companies such as Skype and Amazon. The economy of Luxembourg is robust, and both inflation and unemployment are quite low. According to Eurostat's findings in 2010, the agricultural industry provides jobs for around 2.1% of the country's total workforce. Because of the high level of taxation in the nation, it is often believed that Luxembourg is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. People who work in Luxembourg but live in another member state of the European Union are responsible for contributing a significant portion of Luxembourg's overall tax take. Luxembourg is an unusual prospect for exceptional wealth due to its landlocked position and closeness to the enormous Ardennes woods. Despite its primarily rural landscape and medieval heritage, Luxembourg boasts a strong financial industry, which is only one of the reasons why, despite its modest population of fewer than 650,000 people, it has risen to be the wealthiest nation on the globe. This is only one of the reasons Luxembourg has become the world's wealthiest nation. This little European powerhouse is the wealthiest nation in the world, and our guide investigates the change in industry, commerce, and private banking in Luxembourg, as well as a host of other competing elements, so that we may answer the question once and for all. Let us get into it. Luxembourg is a very small country, making it one of the smallest countries in all of Europe. It is not even close to being as large as Rhode Island, which is the smallest state in the United States, with an estimated size of 2,500 square kilometers. Despite having one of the highest population growth rates, Luxembourg has one of the smallest national populations in Europe, with only about 630,000 people calling the landlocked country home. Nearly half of Luxembourg's population is made up of immigrants from other countries, making it one of the most international countries in the world. The tiny population of Luxembourg has actually helped the country become more successful rather than holding it back. As in the year 2022, Luxembourg has surpassed all other nations in terms of wealth. However, what exactly does this imply? The GDP per capita, also known as the average economic production per person in a country, is often used as a metric to measure a nation's level of wealth. A formula of this kind attempts to assess prosperity via individual economic growth. However, keep in mind that this growth is not always indicative of the average pay. It may be difficult to determine which nations are leading the pack, since these averages are computed in the nation's native currency and are subject to constant change. This is particularly true when it comes to countries that are experiencing exceptional prosperity. However, considering that Luxembourg's GDP per capita is so significantly higher than that of the continuously shifting countries that come in second, third, and fourth place, with the exception of Liechtenstein and Monaco, which are typically disregarded from these rankings, it is abundantly clear that Luxembourg is a leading candidate. In addition to having a GDP per capita of $140,000, Luxembourg also has a PPP per capita value of approximately $118,500 and an average household net wealth of $941,000, which is almost 3 times the average in the United States. Both of these figures are significantly higher than the averages in the US. You are undoubtedly curious as to why Luxembourg is the wealthiest nation in the world, given that it is a landlocked country in the middle of Europe, surrounded on all sides by Belgium, France, and Germany. When did it start becoming such an affluent region? As it turns out, Luxembourg's narrative is a genuine rags to riches one, with its wealth and prosperity transforming virtually overnight in the middle of the 19th century. This is what we are here to find out. So let us get started. The economic powerhouse that Luxembourg is now was not always present in the country. This was not the case in the early 1800s, when the country's economy was more primitive and less diverse than it is now, when it is built on banking, steel, and manufacturing and grows at an average rate of 4.6% each year. At the turn of the 19th century, almost 80% of Luxembourg's population was engaged in agricultural work and had difficult and strenuous lifestyles as a result. The level of poverty was so severe that almost 1/3 of the population of Luxembourg left the country in quest of a better quality of life in other nations, with the majority of them traveling to the United States. That was before the large finding of iron ore reserves in the middle of the 1800s, which brought about a permanent transformation in the economics of the nation. It seemed like instantly, mines and factories were springing up all across the nation, and the prosperous steel industry of Luxembourg was formed. During the 1900s, the relatively tiny country that was completely surrounded by land became one of the most important steel manufacturers in Europe, and employment levels skyrocketed. In the 1960s, the sale of iron and steel goods dominated Luxembourg's overall exports, accounting for 80% of the total. Despite this, Luxembourg's prosperity did not cease, even as industrial jobs started to evaporate throughout Europe and production shifted to nations such as China, where labor was much cheaper. The fact that a developing nation does not have access to the sea may sometimes be a cause of difficulty. A country's exposure to global markets is reduced when it lacks territorial access to seas, which may result in higher shipping costs or a full halt to economic activity. Being landlocked is believed to hinder a country's growth by around 1.5% every year. 31 of the world's 44 landlocked nations are still developing, and 16 are among the poorest in the world. As a result, the fact that Luxembourg's stance has proved to be favorable over time may come as a surprise to some. Despite the fact that Luxembourg, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein are all inland nations, they have all seen fast population growth. In many instances, this is due to the countries that surround them, and as it turns out, being landlocked in the center of Western Europe is not such a bad thing after all. France borders Luxembourg to the south, Belgium to the west and north, Germany to the northeast and east, and Belgium to the east and southwest. As a result, it has not always been its own autonomous political entity. Rather, it has been controlled by a number of different states and rulers throughout its history. However, it has been a self-governing state since the 10th century, and it did not achieve complete independence until the 1800s, when it was elevated to the status of Grand Duchy. Luxembourg has always been able to benefit politically and economically from its geographical position. In reality, the capital city's original Saxon name was Luxembourg, which means little fortress. This referred to the city's strategic position, which intersected an important military route. Because of its central position, the whole country acts as a meeting point for Germanic and Frankish regions. Luxembourg's official languages are Luxembourgish, German, and French. This reflects the country's close relationships with its neighbors, as well as the similar interests they have with Luxembourg. During the 20th century, Luxembourg was asked to be a founding member of a number of key international economic organizations. The Grand Duchy is a founding member of the Benelux Economic Union, often considered to be the most significant of these institutions. Because of its economic strength, Luxembourg was able to establish relations with Belgium and the Netherlands, resulting in the development of the core of the European Economic Community, which eventually developed into the European Union. In addition to offering global banking and financial services, Luxembourg was involved in a range of non-commercial efforts throughout the 20th century, such as hosting European political conferences. All of these factors led to Luxembourg's strong economic development, and by the late 20th century, the nation had established itself as an important financial center. Many significant European institutions, notably the European Court of Justice, the European Investment Bank, the Secretariat of the European Parliament, and the European Court of Auditors, remain in Luxembourg. The headquarters of all of these organizations are in Luxembourg. That is all for today. Thank you for watching this video and have a good time. Before you go, please hit the bell to subscribe to our channel and get video notifications.